Support WrestleTalk!
Be friendly in the comments.
NXT takes over Brooklyn for the 4th year in a row and has now become the brand's iconic and most anticipated show. Tonight's event sees Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano finish off their rivalry in a last man standing match. Adam Cole defend the North American Championship against Ricochet. Mustache Mountain try to reclaim their tag team titles, and Mae Young Classic finalists Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane renew their feud, this time over the NXT Women's Championship. But to get you in the mood, rather than run down the card and give some thoughts on it, after all we already did that on the Wrestle Ramble episode a few days ago, instead I thought we'd look back at some of the best matches from previous NXT TakeOver Brooklyn events, and check out the 5 NXT matches you need to see before NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 4. Number 5, Tyler Breeze vs Jushin Thunder Liger. A bona fide wrestling legend, it seemed incredibly unlikely that we would ever see the great Jushin Thunder Liger at a WWE event. But somehow Triple H convinced him to come over for NXT TakeOver Brooklyn back in 2014. And who would stand up to Liger in his first and likely last WWE appearance? None other than Prince Pretty himself, Tyler Breeze. While this isn't one of the best matches you're ever going to see, it's fascinating to see Liger in a WWE world, facing off against a WWE guy in Breeze. And it's a good reminder of how good of a gimmick Prince Pretty was and how much upper mid-card potential he has. Liger is on form in this match, and Breeze keeps up perfectly. Really, it's almost a shame that this sort of spotlight match featuring talent that don't regularly wrestle for WWE didn't become a thing for Brooklyn shows. Number 4, Samoa Joe vs Shinsuke Nakamura. By the time their feud ended in late 2015, it's easy to see why people got a bit sick and tired of Samoa Joe vs Shinsuke Nakamura. For whatever reason, NXT rammed these two into the ground, having them face off against each other again and again, switching the belt back and forth for the second half of the year. But going back to their first encounter at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2, it's even easier to remember why we were so excited about it in the first place. Brooklyn shows have had 3 awesome NXT Championship matches, with Finn Balor vs Kevin Owens and Drew McIntyre vs Bobby Roode rounding out the threesome. But Nakamura vs Joe stands head and shoulders above them. There's a real big fight feel when these two squared off. Fans had wanted to see Joe win the title since he debuted, but Nakamura came into WWE like a house of fire with his killer debut match against Sami Zayn and decent encounter with Austin Aries. This match was destined to be awesome, and it delivered in spades. Number 3, DIY vs Revival. Now I wanted to have a tag team match in here, and I'll be honest, it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. The Vaudevillains vs Blake Murphy from Brooklyn 1 is surprisingly fun, especially with the reveal of Blue Pants, and last year's war between Sanity and Authors of Pain is entertaining chaos and featured the debut of Undisputed Era. But really, the best of the best features one of the classic NXT tag team rivalries between the Revival and DIY. Back in 2016, there was little fans wanted more than to see Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa hold aloft those tag team titles. And while their championship win at NXT TakeOver Toronto might be a sweeter moment, their match at Brooklyn 2 is simply phenomenal. These 4 men just clicked right away and pulled out incredible near fall after incredible near fall. Gargano tapping out to the inverted figure 4 is a heartbreaking and crushing moment, reminding us all why we bloody love you, Johnny Wrestling. Number 2, Johnny Gargano vs Andrade Cien Almas. And speaking of Johnny freaking wrestling, there was a real twang of shame in the air in 2017 when the long-planned feud between Gargano and Ciampa, which kicked off when the Psycho Killer turned on his friend at NXT TakeOver Chicago, was sidelined due to an injury. It's fair to say that Gargano seemed rudderless. Funnily enough, so did Andrade Cien Almas. Almas came into NXT with a lot of flair and fire, but his babyface run was a bit of a letdown and never really amounted to anything. There were even journalists at the time who were ready to write Almas off entirely. That was until the partnership with Zelina Vega, which ignited a new spark underneath Almas. Never is that more evident than his sleeper hit from TakeOver Brooklyn 3 against Johnny Gargano. I don't think there was a single person who looked at this incredible card and said, well, that's gonna steal the show. Everyone was talking about Aleister Black versus Hideo Itami. They were talking about Asuka versus Ember Moon, and whether or not Drew McIntyre would win the NXT Championship and send Bobby Roode up the main roster. But when all was said and done, the 2 names on everyone's lips were Andrade Cien Almas and Johnny Gargano. This match ruled. I mean, I suppose people talked about Adam Cole as well, but that's really not the point, is it? And number 1, Bayley versus Sasha Banks. And to round off this exceptional list, there was really only one match that could come in at the number 1 spot. It might seem crazy to think in 2018, but in 2015 there was one woman every wrestling fan wanted to see the NXT Women's Championship, and that woman was Bayley. The hugging one captured the hearts of wrestling fans of all ages, demographics, genders, and everything in between. She was the total package, a female John Cena that people actually liked. And here she was, finally looking to capture the big one on the biggest stage NXT had ever been on. And it was against one of the best female heels the brand has ever had in Sasha Banks. This match had just about everything you could want from a title match. It was jam-packed with drama, emotion, incredible near falls, and even stealing each other's finishing moves. God, this match was great! The moment where Bayley won the match was tear-jerking, a landmark moment for women's wrestling in WWE. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. In fact, rewatching this match for this list made me pissed off all over again that she's on the main roster doing bloody nothing of note. This isn't just the best match from a TakeOver Brooklyn show, it might be the best women's match in WWE history. Further to that, it's one of the best matches of the last 10 years in the company period. Absolutely sensational. We're gearing up for NXT Brooklyn 4 by giving our predictions for the show. Click the video on screen right now for more information. I've been Luke Owen, and that was wrestling.